Hello and welcome to the College Selection Soccer Summit. Today we have a very special guest, Tim Ryerson. Tim is the president and founder of Studentathlete World and Studentathlete World Tours. The company, which he created in 2009, helps high school athletes with the college athletic recruiting process and also takes youth, high school, and college athletes around the world to compete in international sporting competitions. Prior to Studentathlete World, Tim was a college coach at 5 different NCAA schools in 4 states over 8 years. Hardin-Simmons University, University of Wisconsin River Falls, Methodist University, Wayne State College, and St. Andrews University. He has a master's in education in sports management from Hardin-Simmons University in Texas. He lives in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, with his wife, Erica, and 2 kids, Harper and Hayes. So let's give a very special welcome to Tim Ryerson. Tim, it's an honor to have you, and thank you for giving us some of your valuable time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, let's get right into it. We're talking about college recruiting. And first off, what are some of the biggest myths about college recruiting?
Yeah. Well, great question. And honestly, that's really what the reason I'm in business is because there are so many myths, and that's a big part of our job is just helping families through helping them navigate all the different myths that are out there. I could go through so many, from the myth of walking on, or the myth of state schools versus public versus private schools, or the myth of when recruiting starts. But I want to focus on a couple that are important to your audience that I see most often in soccer. And the first one is that scholarship, to me, is a word I don't really like to use, because to me, when most people, when they hear the word scholarship, they think, oh, it's free. I'm on scholarship, so I'm going for free. When you watch TV and you see a guy, oh, he's a scholarship guy, and then go, he's free. Well, the reality is in soccer, the vast majority of scholarships are going to be a partial scholarship, meaning if the education is 100%, you might get 50% or 20% or 10%. It is very, very rare for a soccer athlete, even at the Division I schools, to get 100% scholarship. Soccer is not what's called a head count sport. So the head count sports mean if you get a scholarship, it's a full ride. It's not like that in soccer. In soccer, it's going to be broken up. So really what a scholarship is, the word that I like to use with my clients, is a discount. It's a percentage off of the price of college. And an example I like to give is, you probably all get Bed Bath & Beyond coupons in the mail for 20. I get, the little flyers for 20% off. When you get that, you don't get that and say, oh my God, I get free stuff at Bed Bath & Beyond. You get that and you say, okay, well, if I need a toaster, I'm going to save this and I'm going to go save a few bucks off a toaster. Now, you might realize you could maybe get that toaster on Amazon or at Target for the same price as what you're getting it with the discount at Bed Bath & Beyond, because they might jack the price up a little bit and give you a discount. Well, this is exactly what colleges do, especially private colleges. They're raising the price up, and they're using the carrot of an athletic scholarship to get kids to come to their school. So it's not wrong for families to want to save money on college, but when they flat out come out and say, I want to get a scholarship, sometimes that can be a myth, because what they really should be saying is, I want to get a good price on a good education, or I want to be a smart consumer of my college education, or I want to use soccer as a way for me to get a better price on college, or help me get into a school I couldn't get into, or help me get an opportunity to play college soccer and then also get a good value from it. So that's probably the biggest myth I see. Another one is, if you're good enough, coaches will find you. And this is one that, when somebody says this to you, it is true for the top 100th of 1% athlete, the kid who's the freak athlete, the unbelievable talent. That kid can't hide. There's, he can be playing soccer in some field in the corner of the earth, and they're going to find that kid. The cream rises to the top for that kid. But there's so many athletes, and when you're talking about high school to college, that jump from high school to college, there's 25 times more high schools than there are colleges. And that's just a number thing a lot of people don't think about. So a lot of people think, well, if I'm a good high school player, then I'm going to be, I transition to be a college player. Well, you're competing not just against the kids from your high school, but your high school and 24 others combined to make one college team. So there's just a lot more kids than there are spots. So if you think about the last showcase event you went to, hundreds of, maybe 10, 20 fields, 50 fields, whatever, is random recruiting really going to work? And what I mean by that is, do you really think a college soccer coach just goes to one of those events and just sits down in a lawn chair and says, I'm just going to watch some soccer. Oh, look at that guy over there. He looks fast. I'll recruit him. Or, oh, that guy scored a goal. Let me go find out what his name is. Coaches don't recruit like that. How coaches recruit is they get connected with kids first, develop recruiting relationships with them, put them through a funnel, or make sure they're a good fit for their school, make sure they're interested in their school, maybe watch some video to make sure that they have a standard level of ability they're looking for. And then they say to that kid, hey, give me your summer schedule and I'll try to find a way to watch you. So a lot of kids are out there just playing. They just play soccer at every event. If somebody comes and says, hey, I got a showcase for you. It's $500 to play this Saturday, and there'll be lots of college coaches there. They're just paying everybody and going out and playing, and they're subscribing to the myth of, if I'm good enough, coaches will find me. The reality is that there's so many kids that coaches aren't looking for you. Coaches are looking for the best player that they can get. So it's really your job, outside of that top 1% of kids, really your job as an athlete to find the schools that are a good fit for you, let them know about you, and then, of course, from that point on, if you're good enough, they'll recruit you. And then the last myth I think that's important for soccer is the Division III myth. I ask families, been doing this for 8 years, and I ask families all the time, tell me what you know about Division III. The first thing they say is, oh, Division III, yeah, no athletic scholarships. And that's the only thing they know about Division III. But the reality really is Division III schools sometimes are going to give money in other areas, whether it be financial need, whether it be academic scholarship, whether it be other types of scholarship at the school, like alumni scholarships or leadership scholarships, that equal out to what you were going to get at a Division II or NAI school with a scholarship. Now, you're not going to compete against a full ride to a Division I, but if you're getting a full ride to a Division I, you're probably not looking at a Division III school. But a lot of people don't understand that Division III schools are Division III because they don't need to give athletic discounts to get people to come to their school. A lot of times, the example I give in soccer a lot is, soccer is unique in that it sort of takes its it gets a lot of its organization in youth soccer from the European model, and the European model has this the relegation, which is something really only in soccer, where you have the top tier Division I, and then the worst Division I team gets booted down to Division II, and then the best Division II goes up to Division I. So it's very linear. So in soccer, a lot of people, they go through the youth soccer system, and they really get into, well, one's the best, two's second, third's the worst. And they get that ingrained in their mind. And that's true in youth soccer and in the European model. It doesn't work like that in the college U.S. system. There's a lot of overlap there. There's Division II teams that are better than the bottom Division I teams. There's Division II teams that are worse than the top Division III. There's really, really good Division III teams that compete against the bottom level Division Is and would beat lots of the Division IIs and NAIs. But then there's also Division III schools that are terrible. So it's really hard sometimes for soccer families, especially because, well, I don't want to play third division. Third division's the worst. And I'm like, well, actually, there's some really good academic schools that are better than all of Division II. And they look at me like, no, there's not. There can't be. It'd be two, like the number 2 is a less number than 3. So that's really a really, really big myth that we try to get through to our clients. And in the end, it's about picking the best school for the athlete and for the family, and not just at 1, 2, and 3. So those would be, I think, the biggest 3 that come to mind with soccer families specifically.
All right. Well, that was some great information there, and I hope everybody's taking that to heart. Now, Tim, what are some of the mistakes in recruiting that families make?
Two biggest ones, or a couple big ones: targeting the wrong schools. Everybody thinks they're Division I athlete. When I first started doing this, I used to try to, argue my point, I guess, with families a little bit more than I do now. I've been doing this 8.5 years now. Now when a dad gets on the phone to me and starts talking about how, they know their kid's Division I, I don't even fight them. I've heard it so many times. And the reality is, well, unless dad or dad's buddy at work is a college coach that has a scholarship, it doesn't really matter what you think. The problem, there's lots of reasons why this comes into play. You think about a camp, right? If a camp has whether it's a school camp or a private camp or whatever, you might get some evaluations, and the evaluations are going to say, and I've run camps before. I've run camps with hundreds of kids, and you might at the end of camp say, well, these top 10 kids, we think they're high-level Division I, and then these next group of 20 kids, we think they're low Division I, maybe Division II, and then every single kid that paid us $175 is D2, D3. So every single kid, and the reality is, of all the kids that go to camp, maybe 20% of them are even going to play college soccer. So there's no value in that camp telling a kid, you know what, you're just not good enough to play college soccer. You should just give up. Like nobody's going to say that to a kid because they want that kid to come back to camp next year. They want younger brother to come to camp and so on. So you just always going to hear through your whole life growing up that, oh, you can play Division I. Nobody wants to kill people's dreams. That's the last thing people want to do. So you're really never going to hear it. There's really no value in being honest. So when a kid gets ready to look at colleges, they're like, okay, well, I'm realistic. I know I can't play at Duke or North Carolina, but I think I'm a low-level Division I player. I hear that from 95% of our clients. That's every single kid says that. And the reality is maybe 5% of the kids, that we see are going to play Division I. So targeting the wrong schools can really hurt you because it's not bad to chase your dreams, but you have to have Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, Plan E, Plan F, Plan G. You just can't target this small section of schools that every single kid in the nation is targeting. You have to keep a diversified base of schools. So you have to look at Division I, Division II, Division III, NAI, and junior college. Ultimately, the college coach is going to be the one that decides what level you can play at. It doesn't matter as much as your high school and club coach, as much as they're experts in soccer. They're not going to make that final decision. Even us, like our role with kids, it doesn't matter what we think about our clients. We love them. We're there to help them. We're their cheerleader, but we're not giving them a scholarship. We're just helping connect them with colleges. Ultimately, that decision is going to be made by the college coach. So targeting the wrong schools is a big one. And here's another thing that happens with that. Kid gets a letter in the mail, a generic letter saying, come to our camp. Well, that camp is a money-making opportunity for that college. It's maybe a way to pay assistant coaches or something. Well, then a kid gets Division III schools calling them and emailing them and messaging them on social media, and that kid says, I'm not messing with those schools. I got this Division I schools all over me. Well, they just want you to come to camp. They don't even know who you are. So that's kind of getting a big head or I see that a lot. Kids will turn off. They'll burn some bridges with schools because they think, well, I'm looking at just these Division I. And then by the time they realize, okay, I'm not playing Division I, halfway through senior year, it's too late. All those spots that they might have had opportunities for are gone. On that same note, another kind of mistake that the family makes is they don't contact enough schools. If you're a regular student, not an athlete, you can have 3 schools. You can have your dream school that you're trying to get into. You can have your backup school in case you don't get into that. And then you can have your safety school. Hey, if everything goes bad, I'll go to this school. You can't do that with athletics because in athletics, not only you have to be able to get into the school, you have to be able to afford the school, the coach has to want you. Let's say you're a goalie. How many coaches are looking for a goalie in that recruiting class? You might be the best goalie in the nation. They don't have money for a goalie this year. example I like to give is one of the schools I worked at just down the road from where we are was a Division III school. We had 3 spots for to bring in my last year coaching. We had 3 spots to fill. And I ask families all the time, say, how many kids do you think were we recruiting for those 3 spots? And I make all the family, I make every kid in the room, the mom, the dad, whoever, grandma's in the other room, I make them come in and I make them answer that question. And I've been asking this question for 8 years. They always say 20, 30, 50, maybe somebody says as high as 100. And then I show them my recruiting database. I actually pull out the actual database, the screenshot of everything. It's 1,100 kids. I got 1,100 kids. And these aren't just names. These are kids that I filled out a profile on my website, that I have their video, I have their stats, I have their information from coaches. From that 1,100 kids, I'm picking 3. And this is a Division III school without scholarships. So families just don't understand how many kids are competing for how few spots. So what you got to do as a family, as an athlete, you got to play the same game that coaches are playing. You got to have 100. You got to be. We tell our clients we want you talking to 100 college coaches, and because the reality is, if you contact 500 schools, maybe 100 are going to reply back to you and get a conversation going. From that 100, maybe 20 are going to have a genuine interest in you. From those 20, you're maybe going to have 4 or 5 offers. And from 4 or 5 offers, you're going to get 1 good financial offer. So if you start with 5, you're not going to have any. You got to be really lucky. You got to start with 500. So that's a big thing. And then the last thing maybe is waiting until it's too late for something to happen. You hear all the time families will say, well, recruiting, that happens during senior year. It does. The stuff that you see, coaches watching athletes in person, the actual signing of the NLI, but the college recruiting process is very similar to a marriage. You don't normally meet somebody on Monday and get married on Friday. It happens sometimes. It does. It does happen in recruiting. It does happen in the real world. But usually what happens is you get introduced, you have some flirting, you end up dating, maybe you move in together, maybe you get engaged. A year and a half, 2 years later, you get married. That's the way the recruiting process works. College coaches find out who the top prospects are, develop some rapport with them, communicate with them. There's nothing really serious going on for a while. Then they're sharing up some videos. Then it's okay, we're getting serious. And then when that recruiting happens senior year, you get married. So many families see that and they say, well, we're just going to wait. And I think personally, ego's a big part of that, because families are like, well, my kid is, I have 2 little kids. I think they're the most amazing kids that there ever were. So I think families get an ego involved and they think, well, I'm not going to reach out to schools when I'm a sophomore because my kid is so good. They're going to recruit me. Why would they be stupid not to, So they wait until it's too late thinking it's going to happen on their own. Maybe ego's a part of that. So those are, there's so many mistakes, but those are probably the most common ones.
Okay. All right. Now, here's a question that I get a lot, and it's, how do you know if your child is good enough to play in college?
Yeah, good question. First off, it's really a loaded question because there's so many levels of college. So 99% of the kids that come to us or that we work with, they are good enough. Now, they might not be good enough to play at the level where they think they can play or want to play, but they're good enough to play somewhere. Most people know about NCAA Division I, Division II, Division III. There's also an NAIA, which is a separate governing body, has a Division I and II in it. There's also schools outside of the NCAA and NAIA. There's USCAA and a couple other really small. A lot of those are religious colleges or very, very small technical trade schools. There's also a 2-year school program, right? So there's junior colleges or community colleges or technical colleges. If you take all of those together for soccer, there's over 2,000 schools that have soccer programs. How many of those are Division I? About 300. So you're talking 15% of all of the schools are Division I. So if you ask most people what percentage of schools are Division I, they're going to say, oh, most of them, 80% or it's 15%. So most kids can play somewhere. This very, very bottom barrel, if you took the 2000 and made a list of, best to worst, the ones at the very bottom, they're struggling just to get people on the team. I mean, they're actively recruiting warm bodies. They're and I don't, mean this jokingly. They're taking some kids that maybe didn't even play soccer in high school, and we just need some bodies for the team. So if you ask, are you good enough to play soccer in college? The answer 99% of the time is going to be yes, somewhere. It's a matter of finding that fit on that spectrum for you. The bigger question really is, at what level can you play at? And there's lots of ways to get some clues for that. Obviously, going to camps and showcases outside of your high school or your region is a good idea, because then you get to compare yourself against other players. Soccer is a tough one because you don't have stats as much as you do in some other sports. So, it's easy enough for a kid to go play at a showcase with a bunch of Division I players and say, well, I held my own. And that's probably true. That athlete probably did hold their own. But the college coach is looking for potential. So in potential, a lot of times is measurables like size and speed and athleticism, and not really how good are you at soccer. There's a lot of kids that are better soccer players than other kids that won't get recruited at a Division I level because they maybe don't have the Division I body type or size. So
gotcha.
There's more to it than just, how good of a player are you, unfortunately. And like I said earlier, really the only way for you to know if you are good enough or what level you're good enough to play at is to go through the process, cast a wide net, diversify your options, get a video of your highlights, send it to Division I schools and Division II and Division III. If Division I schools are getting your video and watching it and nobody's replying back to you, that's probably going to tell you you're not good enough to play Division I. That's really the only way to find out. There is no, secret evaluation process. We do an evaluation where we have college coaches actually watch video, give feedback. And a lot of you watching this, you probably got something like that at an event or a showcase. That stuff is helpful. Keep in mind, it's one coach's opinion. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. A sport like soccer, there's a lot of subjectivity to that. There's different playing styles. So one coach may love you for their style and one may not. So, I think a big advice I'd have for that is, get lots of opinions. Don't just take your dad's buddy at work's opinion of what level you can play at. Get a bunch of people, talk to some people that have been doing it for a long time. And then, take every opinion, but take it with a grain of salt. Realize that it's just an opinion, and really ultimately college coaches are going to be the ones that decide. And one thing I'll add to that too, academics are a huge part of where you can play too, because if you have under a 3.5 GPA, you're crossing out about 30 to 40% of colleges right off the bat. So what level you can play at and if you can play, a lot of variables, and it's a really hard answer.
Okay. All right. Now, how valuable are ID camps, showcases, etc.?
Yeah, this is, again, I think a really tough one. They're definitely an important part of the process. You have to get out and play against the best players. I was a college coach for 8 years myself. So one of the things I'll tell you is nice about a showcase camp or an ID camp or whatever is, one, it's outside of my season. So, I have time, and for example, in soccer, like in the summer, college isn't going on in the summer, so the college coaches have time to get out and travel. So obviously these showcases and ID camps are easier for college coaches to go and see a bunch of kids at one time. As a college coach, if I want to go to a high school game of each kid, I got to drive to each kid's individual high school and watch one kid at one school, whereas I can go to one showcase event and see 50 kids that I'm recruiting all at one place. So no doubt there's value to it. The problem is most kids, it's kind of the cart before the horse philosophy with it, is most families think, I'm going to go to the showcase, I'm going to get noticed, and then coaches are going to recruit me. The reality is, for most kids, it happens the other way around. And here's what I mean by that. College coaches let's say it's right now, we're in the fall, their college coaches will be gathering information for athletes for who they're going to watch next summer. So they're gathering videos, they're asking kids to fill out online profiles, they're putting them through their sales funnel essentially to figure out which kids are a good fit for my school, maybe making a couple phone calls or doing some background checks with their high school coaches or whatever. And then they're going to say in the spring, give me your summer schedule. They take the summer schedule. They see, okay, we have 40 kids on our list of 2019 prospects that are going to be at, this invitational in Florida. I think it's worth money for our budget to go to this thing. Let's reach out to these 40 kids. And this is exactly what coaches do. People think they just show up in a lawn chair and watch soccer. I'm telling you, I did this for a long time. There are some that don't know what they're doing, and maybe it's their first year in coaching, and they're they didn't really get trained, and they really just show up and wear the polo shirt and sit there and don't know. There definitely are some of those. But the coaches that know what they're doing, they're going into these showcases and ID camps. They're going in with a plan. And here's exactly what I would do when I was a college coach. I take my database. I ask the showcase or ID camp or whatever to send me a database of the kids that are registered. I do a cross-reference, right? So I have the 2 Excel sheets and I cross-reference and I see which kids are going to be at this showcase that are also on my database. Remember earlier I told you my database was like 1,100 kids.
Yes.
So I get a list of 300 kids that have signed up for some showcase. I do a cross-reference. Hey, there's 40 kids that are on this, right? Well, then I see, okay, well, who has the grades for my school? Because if they don't have grades to get into my school, there's no point in spending my valuable time evaluating them. Sure. Okay, so I got this list. Now it's down to 20. Now I make my list of the 20 kids I'm going there to watch. And I say, 8 o'clock, field 2, I'm watching Joe. Then at 8:30, I got to move over to field 6 to watch this goalie play for a few minutes. And I have a plan for the day. Now, if I go to watch my goalie that I'm going to watch and some kid on the other team scores 3 goals against them in the 5 minutes I'm there, I might turn to the guy next to me and be like, hey, you know who that kid is? What's his story? I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It's just so rare. And that's what I call random recruiting, right? So if you want to get recruited by a college coach like me who's done their homework and comes prepared, you got 2 ways to do it. Get me your information 6 months ahead of time. Develop a recruiting relationship with me. Get me your video. Get your college or your high school coach to give some good feedback on you to me so that I ask you where are you going to be playing, and I make a note to watch you at 9 o'clock on field 7 or whatever. You can do that, or you can hope to score 3 goals on the goalie that I'm watching at the exact time that I happen to be sitting in the stands. I mean, honestly, which one of those is easier? And so many kids will say, well, I'm just going to play and somebody's going to find me. So that's kind of the thing is the camps and the ID camps and showcases are definitely valuable. But what you got to do is you got to do your homework before the camp. And this is what we tell our clients, before you go to any event or pay money for any event, find out what coaches are going to be there. And sometimes it's easier to do at some camps than others. Get a list of those coaches. Reach out to them and say, hey, I'm going to be at this event on, June 30th or whatever. Here's my video. Here's my evaluation. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to get a chance to talk. And then that coach shows up and they specifically are going to watch you. The value of that camp just became so much greater because of that legwork you did on the front end. So that's the key thing about it. And there's a mix too. There's some IDs and camps and showcases that are a waste of time, and they're just a money-making scheme, and they're not. I've heard people tell me before that run some of these things that, and it's a true story. I've heard people say the guys that run the camps go to the local Walmart, whatever city they're in, and they buy the polo shirts of all the local colleges and walk around and pretend like they're their college coaches there or whatever. And there's some that are awesome, that have a great reputation, that really work hard to get lots of college coaches there. So I think you have to be a smart purchaser of your time and effort, what you're doing, with youth soccer, because there's so much out there, and sometimes sifting through that can be pretty difficult.
Okay. All right. Now, why is video so important in recruiting?
Yeah, time. It's really just about time. Like I said, if I have 1,100 kids on my list, I can't physically go watch every one of them in person. I have to use the video. Video's not going to get you the spot or the scholarship or whatever. They're going to obviously come watch you play in person before that happens. But video's the bait. Video's what gets the like I said, soccer, there's not a lot of stats. So if you say, well, I score, 1.2 goals per game, that tells me nothing, right? You could be on a terrible league with, kids that never played soccer before, and, might score 4 goals a game, and you might not be good enough to play Division III. Or you might be on the top tier league and you might have really no stats or even be a backup player, but yet be good enough for scholarship level. So the video is what coaches use as the first step. Now, I have heard college coaches, even in soccer, especially in soccer, before tell me, oh, I don't look at video. I got to see a kid in person before I can. It's the only way I do recruiting. Maybe there's some old school coaches out there or whatever. That coach isn't lying. That's the way he does it. But if you, as a family or a student athlete, if you're going to take that approach, then you got to go get your butt in front of 2,000 college coaches across the country, because that guy's not going to come travel to you. He doesn't have the budget. So you have to use video in order to get yourself. Now, if you're only going to consider the 3 local colleges closest to your home, well, one thing is I'm going to tell you, you're going to have a hard time, because you're going to have if you don't cast a wide net, you're going to have a hard time playing college soccer. But if you're only going to consider the 3 local colleges, maybe you don't need a video. You can get in front of those coaches. But for the majority of kids, that video really is so important. You don't need to go overboard with your video. You don't need the video with you strike the ball and the flames come out the back of the video and the rock music goes on when the goal goes in. I'm telling you, when coaches, and I did this myself, and when coaches that we talk to, when they see that stuff, it's a negative. They think, well, you're trying too hard, or this kid's a joke, or what. You just got to have a basic video that shows, some of your strengths. The joke is, you're editing out the bad stuff, so you don't have to go overboard, with trying to make yourself look good. You're going to look how you're going to look. The video's not going to make you look any better. You just got to get something that's easy to watch so that the coach can recruit you. Families, when you're watching that video of your kid, you can find your kid in a second, because you know what the back of their head looks like, you know what color their shoes are. When a college coach is watching a video, they see 22 kids that look exactly the same, and they have a hard time finding you. So what you got to do on your video is you got to have some spot shading, so you can really slow the video down, so a college coach can pop it in. The average time that a coach is going to spend watching your video is going to be maybe 60 seconds. So you just got to have a 2-3 minute video that is just simple, that they can find you, that they can evaluate a little bit of what you do. And then here's what the college coach is going to do. They're going to check it off. Yep, good enough, or he's okay, or walk on pile. There's just that first step. But if you don't have it, you don't get past that step in the process. So it is simple answer to that question. It's almost 100% essential that you have a usable video in the recruiting process.
Okay. All right. Now, what can you do to develop a relationship with a coach of a program that you're really interested in?
Yeah, that's the easy part, really, because that's what coaches want. Is college coaches want to develop recruiting relationships with student athletes interested in their school, assuming you're targeting the right school. The University of North Carolina doesn't want to establish recruiting relationships with 50,000 kids that want to go there. They don't have time for that. But assuming it's the right fit, coaches want that. So it's not really hard to do that. You just have to do it. But it's so rare. As 2017, communication skills from high school, the high school age generation are really, really, really bad. Now coaches are getting better because the coaches now are, the millennials are starting to become coaches now, the assistant coaches. So the coaches are getting better with being on social media and texting and kind of adapting to the kids. But it still is so rare that a student athlete is a good communicator. So one of the best things a family can do to help your athlete get recruited is help your son or daughter be a good communicator. Teach them to talk with old people, because you know who old people are? Old people are the people that have the scholarship you want. So do it their way. Don't, you and I, when we were younger, we had pen pals and we wrote letters with introduction paragraph and a middle sentence paragraph where we had a couple questions and we wrapped it up with a conclusion. Young people today say, yo, 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 what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up? College coaches are busy. They have a lot of kids on their recruiting list. They don't want to have a long, drawn-out back and forth with a kid. So what a kid can do, if they're a good communicator and they can communicate in the way that the college coach wants to receive the type of communication, then they can go to the top of that recruiting list. Now, it's not going to make you from the worst player on the list to the best player. It's just going to put you above some other kids who are bad communicators simply because you can articulate what you actually want. There's lots of ways to do that. One example is, when you talk to a college coach for the first time, don't say, yo, coach, you got any scholarships? Say, hey, coach, I was on your website and I noticed you have a really good physician's assistant program, and that's what I want to study in college. And I saw that you guys took 3rd place in the conference last year, and I want to help you be a conference champion. Now, if you're a college coach, what do you want to hear? Yeah, of course, every kid wants a scholarship, but you're putting yourself in a positive light compared to other kids. Now, here's the problem. What I see now with kids is they're either bad communicators where they can't even talk to adults, or they go overboard and they just annoy the crap out of college coaches. And you gotta live in the middle. And one of the chapters in my book is called Walking the Line Between Proactive and Pushy. And that you gotta be proactive and you gotta be reaching out to coaches and you gotta be talking to them. But you don't want to annoy the crap out of them either. And I'm telling you, Buford, there are very few kids that can do this. Very few. 2% of our clients, I say, do a good job of being in that middle. Most of them aren't proactive enough, and the ones that are, they take it too far. And then what happens there is coaches get annoyed and it becomes a negative. So what you got to do to develop a relationship with coach, you got to reach out to them. You got to stay on top of them. You got to communicate the way they want to communicate. You got to let the coach drive the bus. What I mean by that is, realize that the coach has all the cards. He or she has the spot that you want. There's 1,000 kids just like you. Don't try to jam your stuff down their throat. Oh, watch my video. Come to my game. Do this, do that. The magic phrase that you should use with college coaches is, hey, coach, what can I do to be considered a recruit for your program? Just ask them that and let them drive the bus. Sometimes they're going to say, well, the first step, really, I'd like you to fill out this online questionnaire. Well, you know how many times coaches say that and the kid doesn't do it? Well, the kid doesn't do it, then the coach moves on to other kids that did. Or the coach might say, what I really could use is some video. And then the kid says, well, let me talk to my coach or my mom. And then the video never comes, and then the kid doesn't get recruited. And then all these kids say, I wonder why I didn't get recruited. Well, you didn't really do what the coach asked you to do. So let the coach drive the bus. Ask him what he or she needs from you, and then do that. But that's simple. It should be the easiest thing, but for some reason it really is one of the hardest things for kids to do.
Okay. And the final question is, what can you at Student-Athlete World do for families that they can't do on their own?
Yeah, I mean, there's no magic beans. There's no secret sauce that we have that's going to make our kids get recruited over other kids that don't use us. We're not going to make anyone a better soccer player. We're not going to get kids Division I scholarships that aren't Division I players. What we do at Student Athlete World is we simply provide the tools and the guidance. So we have will hopefully make your life less stressful, and not have you second guessing every decision you make. I have been there on the other side of the process. So I was a college coach for a long time. I know how they think. Sometimes it's a big game of poker with a lot of bluffing going on. You're going to hear a lot of, stuff about, well, I need you to make this commitment in 7 days, or this offer goes away, or whatever. So I've been there on that other side. I understand the way colleges, it really is and not just the college coach, but don't forget about the admissions office and financial aid office. They have a vested interest in this process too, because like we talked about earlier, you're not getting a full ride most likely. So the colleges are still looking at you as a client. They're making money off of you choosing to come to their school. So what I do is I'm an advocate for the family through the process. I'm not trying to replace your high school coach, your club coach, anything like that. We are simply an advocate for the family to help you through the recruiting process. We're experts in college athletic recruiting, keeping you on task as far as sometimes, a lot of our process, and I don't want to get into exactly what we do and how that works, but a lot of our process is student driven, meaning that the student has to take ownership in the process. And when I say student, I mean student. I didn't say dad driven or mom driven, student driven. Mom and dad have a huge role in the process. I talk about in the book the 75-25 rule. That means that 75% of the communication with college coaches should come from the student athlete. Mom and dad shouldn't be involved more than 25%. And the most important part of that is the first contact should come from the kid. I can't tell you how many times as a college coach I got a phone call and I'm like, hey coach, and like, hey, this is, so-and-so, father of so-and-so. Let me tell you about my kid. Well, I put the phone down on speaker and I start doing work and just let the dad talk for 30 minutes about how great his kid is. Because I've heard that conversation before so many times. But when the kid calls me up and starts talking and asking me stuff, I'm listening, I'm engaging, because that's a kid that I might end up recruiting. So, anyway, sometimes families will say to us, well, why should I use Studentathlete World if I got to do all the work by myself? I got to do everything. I got to do it's student driven. I'm the one doing it anyway. And I'll say to them, well, what'd you do yesterday? And they'll say, well, nothing. I haven't done anything yet. Well, I'm here in your living room today, and tomorrow this is what we're going to do. We're going to do A, B, C, D, E. So a lot of what we do is we keep you on task and give families the plan. It's still up to the family to do it. There are people that use our program in the past. They want to pay somebody to get a college scholarship. They would I want to give somebody some money, and then you just go to your layer of your secret scholarship layer, and you come back and you give me some offers. It doesn't work like that. It's not how college recruiting works. So we only want kids and families that are going to engage in the process, and we're there to provide the tools and provide the guidance. Another example I give is you go to Home Depot to buy a bunch of tools to, redo your bathroom or whatever. You come back and you throw those tools in your garage, and then you call up Home Depot, 3 months later and say, what the heck, Home Depot, my bathroom isn't fixed yet. We're just the tools. We're not any secret recipe to get you a scholarship. We're the tools. And then of course we're there to answer questions and provide guidance and help you through the process. So, that's the gist of it. What we are looking for is kids that are a good fit for us. We're not for every single kid out there. If you notice on our logo and everything, we say Studentathlete World. The student is capital, and that's on purpose because primarily our main core client is a really good student who wants to find a good school for them that they also play soccer at. Not a kid who's just, give me the best soccer opportunity. There's lots of other people that'll help you with just soccer stuff. We're more focused on helping families find the best education at the best price that still allows them to play soccer in college.
All right. Well, Tim, I cannot believe all the valuable information that you've given us today. We really appreciate it. And you really need to check out Tim's site at studentathleteworld.com. And I don't normally do this, but I'm going to plug his book that I bought. And this is actually how I found Tim. It's a college athletic recruiting, the complete do-it-yourself guide. And it is a great read, and you should check it out. So go and check out his website. There's a wealth of information. And Tim, we really appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. It was great chatting with you.
All right. Well, we hope to speak with you again soon.
Thanks, Buford.